Translate this by 6, and I'll give you my daughter's hand. That's how Preston Vale opened the meeting, waving a stack of Mandarin papers like a party trick. And the suits around the long glass table laughed, because it was easier to laugh than to admit no one had a clue what those characters meant. 50 million on the line, midnight deadline. Dallas skyline shining back at us from the windows, while I stood there with my mop bucket and my boy Miles on a bench, with his backpack and a granola bar, trying to stay invisible the way folks like us are taught to do in buildings like that. The office manager had called every agency she could find, all of them. Said the same thing, not today, traditional Mandarin, plus legal and finance is a needle in a haystack specialty. And Preston loved that answer, the way a cat loves a cornered mouse. He slapped the table, joked about hiring somebody's cousin from a food court. More laughter, the cheap kind that stings behind your ears. Then he raised the stakes like he always does, big voice, bigger grin. Translate it by 6, and you get something money can't buy. My daughter's hand. And everyone chuckled because they knew it was a performance, a mean one, but a performance all the same. Miles tugged my sleeve, chin up, eyes sharp, the way they get when he sees a puzzle, and he whispered, "I can read that. Its traditional real estate headers are right there." And I shook my head because I knew what rooms like this do to people who speak without permission. But there are days when you decide who you are. And I stepped through the door anyway, palms sweating. Voice steady, "Mr. Vale, my son can help you." Preston turned, took him in like he was a curiosity at a county fair. "How old are you, champ?" 12, my son said. And the room laughed again, ugly this time. And I said, "You made a promise, if he translates, you honor it, so." Preston sweetened his bet and sharpened the blade. If the first page is perfect in 15 minutes, he gets a full private school ride. But if he wastes my time, you're done here. And Blacklisted said, "It's soft like sugar poured over a threat." And I looked at Miles, and he didn't blink. "I can do it," he mouthed. So they sat him at the head of the table with a legal pad and a pen and a contract clipped thick enough to be a weapon. The timer started 15 minutes that stretched and snapped like a rubber band, and Miles ran his finger down the first column like he was greeting an old friend. No phone, no dictionary, just neat square letters, pausing only to choose precise words, the kind that don't wobble when they land, and the laughter leaked out of the corners of the room. You could hear the air vent. You could hear the ice in somebody's glass. And at 12 minutes, he capped the pen and slid the page to the office manager. And Preston wouldn't touch it, handed it to the CFO, Lyle Sutter, like it might stain. And Lyle read, then checked the original, then read again, with his mouth going pale at the edges. "It's correct," he said finally. "The terms, the idioms, the legal phrasing, clean." Preston's smile didn't come back. He nodded like a man counting exits. "Fine, keep going. And here's the part folks always ask me about. How did a kid like Miles learn that? And the truth is not glamorous. Asthma. And late nights with a nebulizer, libraries instead of parks, YouTube lectures instead of Little League. A retired clinic volunteer who taught him characters between blood pressure checks because her husband missed speaking his language. Hunger plus time, that's all. No magic, just a boy who wouldn't stop until meaning clicked. He wrote through page 2, page 3, then paused on page 4, eyes on the clause numbers like mile markers. "Mr. Vale, this is not an investment," he said, and Preston laughed thinly. "Professor, we already established that." And Miles shook his head, clause 47 shifts controlling interest. "The triggers are disguised as timeline progress points. Accept the escrow terms as written, and your counterparty gets 51%. And the room fell quiet, the way a room does when everyone realizes they've been driving toward a cliff with the music too loud. Lyle hunted down the claw's lips, moving, then looked like someone had pulled the plug on his color. "He's right. Old phrasing. Archaic characters looks like a penalty. If you skim, it's not. I felt anger rise like a hot wind because I had heard these men laugh at people like us too many times. But then I saw something I didn't expect on Preston's face, fear, not of us, of the truth printed in small black characters. He almost signed without understanding. "Keep going," he said barely above a whisper, and Miles pointed to a footnote printed so small it could hide in plain sight. "Appendix D references a local facilitator," he said. A name mixed across writing systems so a one-system reader might skip it. "Whose name?" Preston asked, and Miles slid the page across the table. "Lyle Sutter," and the room turned to static, the kind that fills your ears before a storm, and Lyle tried to smile like we were all in on a joke. "That's absurd. I've never even," he started, then stopped, because the paper didn't care what he believed. 5 million commission printed neat as a church bulletin. Preston pressed a button. Security appeared like he'd been waiting to use that button all year. Lyle puffed up, voice going hard and high. "You're throwing me to the wolves on the word of a child. I built this place. This is a setup." His finger stabbing the air toward my son, and I said, "Enough," before. Preston could my voice larger than I'd planned. "My boy just saved your company. You can be mad, or you can be grateful, but you will not smear us to make your embarrassment smaller." And the guards took one step, and Lyle's hands floated out by themselves, because some part of him knew the performance was over. You know what I mean? In the next stretch of minutes, Miles kept translating. While the pieces rearranged themselves, he traced the pattern to 7 other deals tied to the same overseas group, same trapdoors, different cities. A Taiwanese court filing where a family business lost its name in 90 days and never got it back. A glossy press release calling it a strategic partnership. While the ink stole the deed, Preston sank into his chair with his hands tented under his nose. "How did we not see this?" he whispered. And I said, "Because you didn't think the people who clean your floors might keep your blind spots clean too. Then I wished I hadn't. But I had. And nobody died. Yeah, that happened." By 6:15, the contract lay open like a broken umbrella. The laughter was gone. Preston looked at Miles with eyes that were wet, but not with pity. "You saved us," he said. Then looked at me with something I could almost call apology, almost. "Ms. Reed, give me a week to make this right," he said. And I nodded, because when you raise a boy whose chest sometimes forgets its job, you learn to accept the oxygen and argue later about who paid for the tank. 6 months later, Miles wore a blazer that wouldn't sit straight and picked up a Linguistic Studies Award at Trinity Park Academy, full scholarship. Inhaler in his pocket. And joy on his face, I wore a badge that said, People and Culture Director, instead of a name tag that strangers called Honey. We launched a scholarship for contractors' kids and named it after the clinic volunteer who taught Miles his first characters. She cried, then made tea and pretended she hadn't. Lyle took a plea 5 years. Some said light, some said fair. I didn't cheer the sound of a cell door. I preferred the sound of my son laughing on a field trip. And Preston, well, he shook Miles's hand on stage and said he learned not to underestimate anyone, did interviews about safeguards and cultural literacy, and cut ties with the group overseas sometimes. I watched and tried to decide if he had changed, or if he just changed speeches. Maybe both people are loud and complicated. You know what I mean? Do I forgive him for joking about his daughter like she was a prize, or for treating my job like it was small next to his? Some days, yes. Some days, the memory of those laughs makes my jaw tight. Forgiveness isn't a door, it's a hallway. You walk a few steps down, then backtrack. When your legs shake, what I know for sure is this. Knowledge is not a spotlight or a diploma. It's a boy who couldn't run without coughing, sitting under a library vent. Learning how ink curls into meaning halfway across the world. It's a mother who cleans a conference table and discovers her voice belongs to her. It's a room full of titles, realizing truth doesn't need permission to be true. If you ask what I'm proud of, it's not the scholarship or the promotion. It's that Miles stayed calm while grown men waited for him to stumble. It's that he picked exact words instead of fuzzy ones. It's that he kept his softness and still says, please, to the bus driver. And it's that I stepped into a room not made for me and didn't apologize for existing. Not my first rodeo with fear, but the first time I told it to sit and watch. And if we're being honest, sometimes at night I replay the other outcome. The claws not there, the laughter louder, the freight elevator ride down to the garage with a mop bucket and an empty heart. And I still land in the same place. It's always worth telling the truth, even when the room hates the sound of it, even when the price is heavy because silence never saved anyone long term. So tell me, this was Preston, a changed man, or just a man with a better mirror? Was Lyle's sentence justice or a slap on the wrist? Would you have let your kid take that risk for a chance to be seen? And if you were in that room, would you have laughed with the crowd, or cleared your throat and made space for the truth? Drop your take in the comments, argue with me, share the time you watched power get it wrong, and somebody smaller set it straight. And if this hit something real, like and subscribe so more people hear that the smallest voice in the room can still carry the day.